There was a man named Daniel who grew up in a very simple home where life was not easy and every small thing had to be carefully planned. His parents worked hard just to cover basic needs, and from a young age, Daniel understood that money does not come easily in life. But even with these difficulties, he was always curious about something more. He often looked at successful people and wondered how they built their lives from nothing. That question stayed in his mind for years. As he grew older, Daniel realized he did not want to live a life only focused on survival. He wanted something bigger. He wanted freedom, independence, and a chance to create something meaningful. While most people around him chose safe and stable paths, Daniel felt a strong desire to take risks and build something of his own. After finishing school, Daniel started working small jobs, like many others in his situation. The work was honest, but it did not give him satisfaction. Every day felt the same, and deep inside, he felt that he was capable of more. He would often spend his nights thinking about ideas, dreaming about businesses, and imagining a different future. But he had no money, no experience, and no support from people who believed in big dreams. Still, one thought kept pushing him forward. If others can succeed, why not me? That thought became stronger than fear. One day, he made a bold decision that changed his life completely. He would leave the safe path behind and start his own journey in business, even if it meant failing many times. Daniel took all the money he had saved and started his first small business. At the beginning, everything felt new and exciting. He worked harder than he had ever worked before. He woke up early, slept late, and tried to handle everything by himself. But very soon, reality became difficult. Customers were not coming. Expenses were increasing. Problems appeared one after another, and Daniel slowly realized that passion alone was not enough to succeed. After a few months, he had no choice but to close the business. It was his first real failure, and it hurt deeply. He lost money, time, and confidence. For a moment, he even thought about giving up completely. But after a few days of sadness, he told himself that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of learning. With whatever little money remained, Daniel tried again. This time, he was more careful. He made plans, studied the market, and tried to avoid the mistakes he made before. But even with more preparation, the second business also failed. And then the third one failed too. Each failure felt like a heavy weight on his shoulders. He began to understand that success was not as simple as he imagined. It was not just about trying hard. It was about understanding people, timing, and constant learning. But even though failure kept repeating, Daniel refused to stop. Every time something failed, he would sit quietly and ask himself, "What did I do wrong this time?" Slowly, failure became his teacher. As the years passed, Daniel's story became known in his small community. People stopped seeing him as a dreamer and started seeing him as someone who could not succeed. Some people laughed at him behind his back. Others openly told him to stop wasting his time and find a normal job. Even some friends who once supported him began to distance themselves. These words affected him deeply, especially during the nights when he sat alone, thinking about his life. He started questioning himself more than ever. Maybe they are right, he sometimes thought. But every time doubt appeared, another voice inside him answered, "If I stop now, all my efforts will mean nothing." That inner voice kept him going. Daniel continued trying again and again. Each new attempt came with hope, but also with fear. By now, he had already failed many times, and the pain of failure was no longer new to him. It had become part of his life. But something important was changing inside him. He was no longer the same person who started years ago. He had gained experience, patience, and a deeper understanding of how life works. He began to notice small improvements in his thinking. Instead of rushing into ideas, he started analyzing everything carefully. Instead of reacting emotionally to failure, he began responding logically. Without realizing it, every failure was shaping him into a stronger person. At times, Daniel felt exhausted, not just physically, but mentally. Starting over again and again was not easy. There were moments when he looked at his empty bank account and wondered how long he could continue. But giving up never felt like a real option for him. Something inside him refused to accept defeat. Even when everything seemed lost, he would take a short break, gather his thoughts, and try again. Slowly, he began to understand something very important. Success was not about speed. It was about persistence. The people who succeed are not always the smartest or the richest. They are often the ones who simply refuse to stop. Years turned into a long journey of trials and errors. Daniel had now failed more than anyone around him could count. But something surprising happened during this time. He was no longer afraid of failure. Instead, he began to respect it. Every failure showed him something new about business and about himself. He learned how to manage risk, how to deal with people, and how to make better decisions. He realized that success was not a single moment. It was a process built from thousands of small lessons. Slowly, his mindset changed completely. He stopped chasing quick results and started focusing on long-term growth. After what felt like an endless journey, Daniel reached his 100th attempt. By this time, most people had already stopped paying attention to him. Some had even forgotten about his dream. But Daniel was different now. He was calm, focused, and experienced. He no longer acted out of excitement or desperation. Instead, he worked with patience and clarity. On his next attempt, something finally started to work. It was not instant success, but slow and steady progress. For the first time in many years, Daniel saw positive results instead of failure. It was a small beginning, but it felt like a turning point in his life. Daniel continued improving his idea every single day. He fixed problems, listened to feedback, and worked harder than ever before. Slowly, his small success began to grow into something bigger. People who once doubted him started noticing his progress. And those who had laughed at him could hardly believe what they were seeing. The man who once failed 100 times was finally building something meaningful. But Daniel did not forget his journey. He remembered every failure, every struggle, and every moment of doubt. Because he knew that success was not a sudden event. It was the result of years of persistence, learning, and never giving up.